Got a great note for you Rams fans. Matthew Stafford can join Tom Brady and Peyton Manning as the only quarterbacks in NFL history with multiple seasons of 50 or more passing touchdowns, which includes the playoffs. Stafford sitting at 49. He and the Rams got revenge on the Panthers last week, wildcard round. LA was down with 2:38 left to go by 4, and Stafford had that game-winning drive to beat Carolina. Here's the Super Bowl champ on never being out of the game.
I feel like you're never out of a game until, clock's over or there's just obvious, not going to be enough time. But if there's time on the clock, feel great about it. And emotion is great. You score a touchdown, maybe you score another, whatever you need to get done. That emotion is great, but you got to go out there and execute.
Let's bring in our Ryan Wilson with why the Rams can win the Super Bowl. And we start with a guy we just heard from, Matthew Stafford, who's the odds-on favorite to win league MVP. It's interesting, R-Dub, he was mentioning about feeling good. That wasn't the case in the summer. You're talking about a bad back, epidurals, is he even going to play? And then lo and behold, a few months later, driving this team to another playoff and Super Bowl run.
As a fellow graybeard like Matthew Stafford, I understand the energy it takes to get up in the morning. But right, so in August, we were having conversations, is Matthew Stafford going to have to retire? And now we're having MVP conversations. I'll ask a rhetorical question, Tommy. Are the Rams playing the Falcons or the Panthers this week? No, and that's usually the team somehow that Matthew Stafford has struggled against this season. They're playing the Bears, a team he's quite familiar with from his time in the NFC North. And the more important thing is that at 37 years old, Matthew Stafford looks more like he's 27 because he is still playing at an MVP level. And he talked about it. Every time he's out there, you feel like they have a chance to win, in large part because of Matthew Stafford, in large part because of the man calling the plays on the sideline and the headset, and in large part because of the guys running routes when they're healthy. And that, of course, is Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams, who's a red zone threat if he's no longer the triple threat that he was back in his prime, but he still can do a lot of damage. So if you're asking me why the Rams can win it, I'm taking Matthew Stafford over just about every other quarterback left in this tournament here, maybe other than Drake May, which is kind of crazy to say out loud. And while Caleb Williams has made that progress, Tommy, Matthew Stafford has been there, done that, and I still think, and this is wild to say as a 37-year-old, his best football might be ahead of him over this next month of the season.
It's interesting how you rank them. We had Danny Cannell yesterday give us his quarterback power rankings, and he had Matthew Stafford at number 1. And if you love parallels, by the way, the year they won the Super Bowl in 2021, he threw 50 passing touchdowns that season. As a whole, along those lines of the offense here, this is a team, Ryan, that has scored 34 or more points in 9 of the last 12 games. How would you describe this offensive unit right now?
Unstoppable if they get out of their own way. And I think one of the issues that perhaps critics have with the Rams is that, are they going to shoot themselves in the foot one too many times? The counter argument to that is they're still winning these games by scoring a ton of points, even though they're making mistakes they weren't consistently making during the year. So if they clean up those little things, and you see there with Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams, who I mentioned earlier, Puka Nacua is so good, what is this, year 3 or year 4 for him, Tommy, that I would imagine every other fan of the teams that have to face the Rams ask themselves just about every play, why are we not triple teaming Puka Nacua? The answer is probably because he would still get open. And of course, we know how potent that running game is with Kyron Williams and Blake Corum. They have a chance to get Kevin Dotson back along the offensive line. And the other thing with Sean McVay, you remember when they lost that Super Bowl to the Patriots and how he admitted to being sort of starstruck and going up against Bill Belichick. He continues to evolve and somehow get better. They're using way more 3 tight end looks now. They drafted Terrence Ferguson to help with that. When he is healthy, he's been out there. We saw the great play by Kobe Parkinson to win that last game last week. So that versatility plus star power equals almost unstoppable offense.
Yeah, they really love that 3 tight end look, by the way, and all the versatility, as you mentioned, it offers him from a scheming perspective. Same question for the other side of the ball, though. When it comes to the defense, and I'm curious if you sort of subscribe to what I think is a lot of people have talked about, is that this defense, Ryan, plays much better with the lead, obviously, but it just allows them to play differently, much more aggressive.
Yeah, they were red hot over the first half of the season, and then I don't know if they were leaking oil, but it seemed like some of their luck was running out in certain circumstances. But I will say this, that front 7 is as good as any in the NFL, and we know Chris Shula, the defensive coordinator, is going to get a ton of opportunities to get a head coaching job after the Rams season ends, whenever that may be. But you talk about the front 4 with Braden Fisk and his former teammate at Florida State and Jared Verse. We know about Kobe Turner and Poona Ford. We know Nate Landman, who's a fantastic story. But once you work your way into the secondary, things can get a little hit or miss. this. They had to bring in Emmanuel Forbes, and he's done pretty well, certainly better than he did with the Commanders when they made him a first-round pick. But that's where the issues lie. I think if they can get back to what they were doing over the first half of the season and that hair-and-fire approach to going downhill, and to your point, Tommy, having an elite helps with that, I think that they're going to be just fine. And the other thing is we've seen Caleb Williams early in games get frustrated and have body language that maybe you don't want from a young quarterback. And if they can build off of that and get some turnovers, that could also facilitate a chance to stay ahead longer.
They'll have to look to improve their road record. Last 5 games have been giving up nearly 29 points per game with a 2-3 record. But, of course, they did get that victory at Carolina, but once again on the road in Chicago this time around. So in terms of, like, intangibles, this has been the postseason of, like, you know, leads to changes, built to win close games. We're talking about lead changes in fourth quarter and playoff history. The Rams are tied for the most with 4 in that wild card game in Carolina. What do we learn about this particular group on that front?
Well, like I said a moment ago, Tommy, they've been there, done that. They obviously won the Super Bowl a few years ago against the Bengals, and Matthew Stafford is an old hand at this. And you might say, well, the weather's going to be an issue in Chicago. Well, Matthew Stafford and Devontae Adams played in the NFC North forever, so I don't think they're going to be affected by that. And the other thing is, we heard Matthew Stafford say it at the top, they're never out of it. And that's not just talking points for someone to write down in a notepad and later write up in a story, Tommy. He's not lying, and I would imagine teams that face the Rams do not want to score too early. And by that I mean with anything more than probably 8 or 9 seconds left on the clock, because if you give them 30 seconds, it's going to be down to the wire in terms of their ability to go 60, 70, 80 yards and set up a game-winning touchdown or that game-winning field goal. So they are never out of it. Puka Nacua makes that the case. Matthew Stafford makes that the case. Devontae Adams makes that the case. And, of course, Sean McVay, the mastermind behind it all, makes that the case. So I would feel, in terms of reliability about the players you're trying out there, I feel pretty good, almost great about Matthew Stafford and company compared to the rest of the guys in the tournament here.
Lastly, you brought up Sean McVay. He's still 39 for the moment. If they go on another deep run, he'll eventually turn 40. But that's still crazy that even if he gets to 40 years old, he's been around the game this long.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me how young he is, Tommy. He went to school with our buddy John Breach, who's actually older than he is. But what he has accomplished and the time he has accomplished it is mind-blowing in a sport where there are so many alphas who are out there doing things that sort of elevate the game. And I think Kyle Shanahan is up there. It will be interesting, however, to see him butt heads with Ben Johnson, right? Because Ben Johnson, I give him a ton of credit for stoking the rivalry. He didn't create it, but stoking the rivalry with the Packers after their win last week. And this is going to be good on good, as we like to say. But I think Sean McVay has more firepower right now, even though a couple years from now we might be talking about the Bears as the next version of the Rams coming up.
That's Ryan Wilson with why the Rams can win the Super Bowl. And if we take a look at the odds to win the conference, the NFC West is well represented here. 4th division ever with 3 teams in the divisional round. Rams are the second betting favorite, only behind the Seahawks in that category.